Hey everyone, another episode here of the Growth Mindset podcast. I'm your host, Coach Dave March, and on this podcast, as you know, or if you're just coming in, we bring on different inspiring and inspirational leaders, either innovative in their own right, or really just looking to change the game. And today we have a special guest, Naman. Naman is the COO of Management Consulted. Naman, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Dave, thanks so much for having me. It's a real honor. My name is Naman. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Management Consulted. We're the world's largest provider of strategy and analytic skills training. So we work with entrepreneurs, we work with individual contributors, we work with leaders inside the Fortune 500 who are looking to increase their influence. And so I think, Dave, we all know that we live in a world that's drowning in data, but knowing the facts isn't enough to stand out anymore. You have to know how to use facts to build and drive a narrative that's going to allow you to gain buy-in and motivate action. And so a lot of the coaching and the training that I do now is on storytelling. It's on working with individuals to ensure that the work that they're doing is represented accurately and that it actually leads to impact. The goal of storytelling isn't just to prove that you did a lot of work. It's to get people to do something as a result of that work. And so a lot of my coaching and training now with leaders, with entrepreneurs is focused on business storytelling. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that today.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about here. We tell our story, as you can see in the back. So, yeah, storytelling has always been a big piece, and even of my book, Vision Action, I wrote out the best storytelling structure that was ever created. It's the hero's journey. You probably know of it. Joseph Campbell was kind of the pioneer of it. It was a framework for Star Wars and all the best movies out there. That's really one of the best storytelling frameworks. So as we jump in here, is there any storytelling frameworks which you use or is really beneficial to the people that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the hero's journey, but maybe not always within a business context. And so
Yeah.
for me, answer first is the framework that I teach and preach, in every organization that I work with. And answer first says this, that within the first 3 to 5 minutes of an interaction, you should tell your audience what it is that they should do or believe coming out of that interaction. Because if you don't give them your key takeaway up front, they're going to lose interest. They're going to switch off. We live in an attention economy. And if you cannot keep somebody's attention, you cannot thrive in the world we live in today. And the way to keep someone's attention in a business setting is to say, here's what matters to you coming out of this interaction. I need you to do something. I need you to believe something. Here's why it's good for you. And the rest of the meeting, the rest of the presentation, the rest of the interaction is me proving to you that what I just told you is the right thing for you to do or the right thing for you to believe. If you wait till the end of an interaction to give someone your key takeaway, all you're doing is you're inviting disagreement and pushback at the end of a meeting, at the end of an interaction. And then you have run out of time to address your audience's concerns. If you lead with a key takeaway, Dave, if I tell you what it is I want you to do, or if I tell you what it is I want you to believe early on, you're going to have questions for me. You might even have pushback for me, and that's fine. I'm okay with that because then I have the rest of our interaction to address those things. But if I wait till the end of the meeting to give you the punchline, and you still have disagreements or pushback, well, then now I've run out of time to address those. And now we've got to schedule a follow-up meeting, which sucks. Nobody wants to do that. But that follow-up meeting is probably going to be in 1 to 2 weeks. And in that interim 1 to 2 weeks, all that's happened inside of your head is that you are more and more convinced that you're right and I'm wrong. And so now I've got a way more difficult job in the follow-up meeting to get aligned with you. And so answer first communication engages your audience early on by telling them what they should do or believe and why it's good for them. And it also acts as a great tool for you to uncover objections and uncover what your audience really cares about at a time in the interaction where you can still do something about it. And so we can get way more into the weeds on answer first, but that's the high level. And I found that to be the most effective framework for business communication, whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whether you're on an internal team just reporting up. Everybody is asking the hypothetical question, so what? When they interact with you, the question in the back of their mind is, why am I here? I'm super busy. What does this have to do with me? And if you can't communicate that early on, you're gonna find that your influence is really capped.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's actually fantastic framework. That sounds great. Yeah, the idea of social skills or soft skills, or some people even call them power skills, is really, I think, the forefront of the conversations nowadays. Just like you're saying, I mean, like a lot of these leaders, they know about the data. I mean, that's what they're trained on. They know the data, they know the information, all that kind of stuff in and out. But when it comes down to like empathy and creating like psychological safety and emotional intelligence and communication, those are the pieces that are lacking more. What are your thoughts on this general topic of the soft skills and such?
I think soft skills are the differentiator, Dave. I think that's what separates an individual contributor from a leader. It's what separates an okay job candidate from a great job candidate. When you go to school, you are learn the hard skills, right? You can learn the hard skills on YouTube. Like there's a lot of places where you can go to learn hard skills, but what really makes the difference in the real world is being able to use those skills to extract insights and then being able to apply those insights to make change. And the way that you make change in the real world is by getting everybody on the same page. If you don't have soft skills, you cannot do that. And so that's why, even though I teach analytics, even though I teach business problem solving, the most popular coaching program I offer, the most popular training I offer is on executive communication and on executive presence, because more and more organizations are realizing that's the big gap that their people have, and they can do the work, but they can't use the work to drive meaningful change across silos. That's the big gap. And that communication, that soft skill piece, Dave, that's the one piece that AI can't replicate. Everyone's talking about ChatGPT these days. Everyone's talking about large language models. Everyone's talking about, not just AI, but automation. There's a lot of the analytics piece that can be replaced by AI. The communication piece, the soft skills piece, the human element, that cannot be automated away. So if you want to stand out in an increasingly digital world, you have to add the skill of storytelling to your tool.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And, when it comes to resumes, everyone's got a resume now. Resumes are really important to get out there. But I think the biggest critique I could say about resumes is they don't really tell the story of who you are in a way that can really show you your soft skills and all these kind of things. So, there's a lot of changes that are coming down in 2025. A lot of changes down the pipeline, if you will. And so, I think resumes are going to change. I think one thing. What are some things that you think are going to be changing in terms of how a particular candidate markets himself?
Yeah. So, Dave, one of the things that I've done over the last 10 years is I've mentored thousands of job seekers. And I've always told them, especially for the really competitive industries that they're targeting when they work with me, like they're targeting consulting, they're targeting investment banking, they're targeting corporate strategy. I've always told them that the resume is just one piece of the application strategy. If you're just going to blindly apply to 10,000 jobs online, you're wasting your time. A lot of these incredibly competitive industries that I've just mentioned are human capital driven. What I mean by that is that the companies that you're applying to don't necessarily have a proprietary software or technology they're selling. They are selling the talent and the skill of their people. And so when you are applying to roles in industries that are human capital driven, then the resume isn't the only part of the equation. You have to network before you apply. And a lot of these organizations treat networking almost as a round zero interview, because what they're selling are the skills and the raw talent of their people. Then it stands to reason that they really want to know who they're dealing with even before they interview you. Because in the interview process as an employer, I spend a lot of time, effort, and money interviewing people. And I want to make sure that the people I'm interviewing actually have the best chance of making it through my process. And so the way that I figure that out is I interview people who have networked with people on my team, because you've already passed a certain baseline level of test, right? I know you're not a serial killer when I've talked to you. Right? I know that you know how to communicate. I know that you know how to hold a conversation. I know that you have some level of executive presence. I know that you have some level of ability to interface with my clients because you've been able to interface with me. And so does the resume have to be strong? Absolutely. You need a kick-ass resume. But that's table stakes. Everybody has that now, or at least they should, right? So what's the differentiator on top of that? It's the networking piece. And I will tell you, Dave, like for my organization, 10 out of 10 times, networking is the tiebreaker. So, if you've applied for a certain role in my organization and someone else has applied and you're both great on paper, I'm always going to interview the person who's networked. I'm always going to interview the person who's already talked to me because it's less risky for me, right? A lot of the decision-making process around who gets an interview from the organization's perspective is who's the least risky candidate. And so you de-risk yourself in the process by making sure you've talked to people ahead of time.
100%. I agree. I agree. As our lives become more and more online, I think that, doing podcasts and doing things like this are more and more important because it essentially builds up your personal brand. Your people are able to see you and understand who you are, before they bring you in for an interview. And so building up your own personal brand and having that kind of content online and all these kind of things around you really works as like almost like a pre-sales process. I look at the recruiting process as like a sales process because you're essentially selling yourself for this particular company. So yeah, that's really interesting. As you talk about executive presence and stuff like that, I would assume online presence has something to do with that as well, or does it not?
It can help. I think the kind of brand building and the content creation you're talking about online are really valuable, but not necessarily for the reason that people think. I think
Mm.
for me, like writing, creating videos, all of that helps me clarify my own thinking. So the real value of some of that online brand building you're talking about to me isn't even that other people see it. It's just that it helps me get my own value proposition and my own thoughts out of my head onto paper. And that's the big value for me. So if you've got an audience of 0, it can still be really valuable for you, right? Like write a blog post, write something on LinkedIn, create a video, not for anybody else's sake, but because it's helping you clarify like your own thinking on a particular subject or a particular topic, even if that topic is you, right? So that the first time you're talking about yourself isn't in an interview, isn't in a networking conversation, you've already done it. And so I think that's the real value of writing, of content creation, of video production, is that it helps you clarify your own thinking. Everything else is gravy. And from there, that's how you start to build executive presence. My definition, Dave, of executive presence is being able to carry yourself like the peer of the person you're talking to. So, if you walk into a meeting with Jeff Bezos, executive presence in that setting looks like you carry yourself like Jeff Bezos's peer. It means you're not scared, you're not cowering, you're not looking down, like you're able to have a conversation realizing that there's value that you bring to that interaction. And you have that conversation like with a plan. Like you don't walk in just going with the flow. You don't walk in just wondering where the conversation is going to go, right? A part of executive presence is knowing the end from the beginning. It's knowing, okay, the reason I call this meeting is because I need to accomplish something. So I'm walking in with a plan, with an agenda. I'm going to share it confidently, and I've got a plan to get us to the destination we need to get to. And you can do that with Jeff Bezos. You can do that with your team. You can do that in an interview. That to me is real executive presence.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, that's some great insights, man. Love that. I mean, yeah, executive presence is kind of intangible in a way. It can be abstract. I think it's something that's kind of, I'd say, difficult to just learn on your own as you go through different training programs and your different services and stuff like that. What are some of like the big like takeaways people get from that?
One of the big takeaways is answering these 3 questions, Dave. And I think these 3 questions are the foundation of executive presence. They're also the foundation of all effective communication. So question number 1, who's my audience? It always shocks me how many people, when they start to answer that question, they figure out the most important people are not the people I've actually been addressing. So the first question to always answer is who's my audience? The second question to always answer is what do I want them to do? In a particular interaction, what do I want them to do? Do I want them to buy from me? Do I want them to agree with my idea? Do I want them to agree to a follow-up meeting? Do I want them to hire me? Like, what's the point of this interaction? And then question number 3 is why will they not do what I want them to do? And what that starts to help you do is anticipate objections and questions. And then what good storytellers are able to do from there is craft a story that addresses those questions and objections before they arise. And so I think a big part of executive presence is doing the work ahead of time. It's not just walking into a meeting and winging it. It's actually doing a little bit of prep and saying, okay, I know who my audience is. I know what I want them to do. And I also know what they care about, which means I know the questions that they're going to ask me. And if you can walk in prepared, that to me is a big hallmark of executive presence, is being prepared. Like this isn't just something you're born with. It's not innate. It's not just charisma, right? Like executive presence is a skill that can be built over time. And one big way you build it is by preparing. And then after that, it's just practice, to be honest with you. It's putting yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable and saying, you know what? I'm in a big meeting. I'm going to make sure I speak up in the first 2 to 3 minutes. I don't want to be seen as the admin in the room. I don't want to be seen as the note taker in the room. Like, I want to speak up early and assert a point of view. I don't just want to ask, yes or no questions. I want to ask open-ended questions to facilitate a conversation. I don't just want to stick to a script. When someone says something interesting or insightful, I want to follow up on that. Right? Like, these are some practical tips and tricks that you can use to enhance executive presence, but until you apply them, it doesn't really matter. And so a big part of executive presence is taking some of these things, applying them, and then growing in them over time.
Love that. Love that. One of the things I constantly talk about people on my team, and also just about all the clients I work with, um, is this idea of embodiment. The idea of embodiment is so important, because that's essentially what you're saying. I mean, because you could hear these things, and look, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Chat GPT, go all these different things, and there's all this information out there, so much knowledge out there. But what makes a difference is your embodiment of that information. How do you do that, right? It's like I can watch YouTube, I can watch a guy play tennis on YouTube, but it's not until I'm in the court with someone, perhaps a coach, tennis coach, playing tennis, you start to embody that, start to actually get to know what it means to have that.
And I think that's a great analogy. I play tennis, right? So I can tell you firsthand, it's much harder than it looks, right? And the same is true with executive presence. It's actually much more
Yeah.
difficult than it looks, which is why the earlier that you start practicing, the better. One of the hallmarks of any success that I've had as a professional, any success that my organization has had, right? One of the hallmarks of that is a bias towards action, meaning that we start applying what we're learning immediately before we're experts. That is the fastest way to improve at anything. We don't just want head knowledge, we want experiential knowledge. And the faster
100%.
that you can start to apply what you're learning, the faster you'll figure out what doesn't work, which is just as valuable as figuring out what does work. And so listen to this podcast. That's great, right? Like, listen to the end of this conversation. But if all you're going to do is listen to this podcast and do nothing else, you're wasting your time.
100%, man. Yeah, I agree. That's it right there, right? That's it. And that's what I hear so many people say, because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. You got to have a bias for action. You're not gonna really know all these things that we're doing unless you practice it, right? You gotta practice it. In a coaching session, it's sort of like the training grounds where you can practice that, and then once you go into the real situation, then okay, now you've practiced, now you're ready to go. That's how I see it. Is that kind of how you see it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the coaching that I do with clients and with organizations, I think they find it to be a safe space to practice.
There it is.
One of the things that is valuable is having a trusted expert advisor who's a third party. When I used to do resume edits and reviews back in the day, one of the values that I brought to, our clients was, hey, you know what? I'm a little bit removed from your experience. So I'm not emotionally attached to everything that you've done, which means it's easier for me to cut out the fluff. Right. The same is true for the executive communication and the business coaching I do today. It's like, I'm not emotionally attached to the way you've always done things, but I have a lot of experience. I have communication experience. I have executive experience. I have a perspective you can trust. And so let's practice it here. You'll start to figure out, oh, this feels good. I'll be able to tell you, hey, you know what? If I was on the other side of the table from you, like, that would resonate with me, right? You could start to get some of those reps in with me. And then when you go into the real world, it's not the first time you've done things. So I think there's real benefits to having an expert advisor in your corner. I think every single professional, every single leader should have a kitchen cabinet, right? A cadre of advisors that they have in their corner that they can bounce ideas off of, that they can practice things with, so that when you're in the quote unquote real world, you've got some muscle memory.
Totally. And muscle memory connects back to the tennis analogy, so I'm glad you used that. Naman, I think this has been a great conversation. I think that we can kind of transition to the end of this episode today. I think that we gave a ton of value here. Is there any final encouragement or final words you want to give? And if there's not, tell the audience how they can find you and where they can talk to you more.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I think communication is the 21st century superpower. So if you want to expand your influence and maximize your influence, you have to learn how to be a clear and persuasive communicator. That's true whether you're an engineer, whether you're a salesperson, a marketer, a CEO, doesn't matter. Communication is the differentiating skill of our time. Whether you like it or not, you've got to get better at it. And so if you want to work with me or if you just want to follow along with my writing and some of the things that I'm talking about, you can find me on LinkedIn. So Naman Mian, Dave, I'll share the link with you that you can pop in the show notes, and so people can just click through and find me there. Follow me, message me, engage with me. I'd love to connect with you there. Our company is called Management Consulted. And so if you go to managementconsulted.com/storytelling, you'll find out a lot more about how we work with teams and how we work with individuals. And feel free to reach out for a no obligation conversation, if you want to explore our coaching and if it's right for you.
Perfect. Well, thanks everyone for your long attention today. This is the Growth Mindset Podcast signing out. Thanks all.